All right, in this video, we're going to look at the software Local from the company Flywheel, a hosting company, and this is going to allow us to set up WordPress locally on our computer. So we'll start off here at local.getflywheel.com. And again, I'll just point out that whereas Desktop Server is run by a software company that focuses just on building that product and some other products around hosting and managing WordPress, now this software is run by a hosting company, Flywheel, that picked up an earlier version of this software and has extended and enhanced it and improved it. So that's just a little bit of the background on the two, but this one is going to be completely free. There's only one option here, except you could choose whether you have Mac or Windows. So go ahead and grab the free download, and I'm not going to show you the installation process, but we'll take a look at what you have going on once you have it set up. So once you have Local installed, it's going to look a little something like this, may change over time or modify a little bit. You could see I have a few sites set up, and I'm going to just show you here how to set up a new site. So I'm just going to call this one WordPress again, and you definitely want to come down into advanced options. So this is going to be the site name. Let's say I wanted to call it WordPress development, but I wanted the actual URL to be just WordPress. And notice that it's also going to give you this .dev here. Now, same as before, we could choose where we want this to show up. By default, it's going to create a new folder, local sites. So these are, your local sites, and it's going to put everything in there. If you want to sync it to Dropbox or save your path somewhere else, you could totally do that. And like Desktop Server, they also have a blueprint option, but we're not going to look at that as well. You could check that out a bit more on their site if you want some more details on that. So once I click through continue, it's going to ask me how I want to set up my environment. Now, if you know you have a specific server configuration, you might have a specific version of PHP, you might have Apache versus Linux, you might have a different MySQL version. So whatever your live version is that you're going to be pushing to, then you could configure that here and tweak it. I usually just go with preferred, which is a current version of PHP. It's got the Nginx and Varnish and MySQL. So also, if you're hosting with Flywheel, they say, hey, use this if you're going to migrate to us, because this is a similar setup to what we have. Then on the next screen, we could see here, you're going to enter in your username, password, and an email. If you want to make this a multi-site, you can. We're not going to at this point, but that allows you to create a network of WordPress sites that are interconnected. So we have all this set up. Let's go ahead and add our site. Notice that it is going to ask you for your password. Again, some of the stuff going on at a high level is similar to what we see with Desktop Server, or at a low level, I guess. So it's going to need that root level access and making those configurations and changes. And then we've got it all set up. So a few things I want to point out here. First of all, we can start and stop this site. So we don't have to start the whole server. And we can manage sites independently. So we could have multiple sites running. We could have just one. Notice that once I stopped it, it lets us know, and we could start it back up. So once we have our site set up, there is some basic information. Again, just the WordPress version, the server info. We could change the domain name, but it doesn't look like you could actually change the path of where these files are located. I'll come back to file locations and editing and playing around with that. For the database, it's not going to give you PHPMyAdmin. I'd actually suggest downloading this app, SQL Pro. And what this app does is let you easily manage WordPress databases. It's very polished. I really like it. It's pretty easy to use. It'll automatically sync and get set up with Local. And you could do the same kind of things you would with PHPMyAdmin, but it's a standalone app. Again, nicely polished. It's free. I highly suggest it. So that's going to allow you to automatically connect and access it, but you could also find all the data you need as well. Now, one thing about testing locally is if you're working on a site that needs HTTPS, you may have your browser constantly saying, hey, this isn't secured, that sort of thing. So you can just click trust, and then your browser will know, hey, I could run this site with HTTPS as well. Finally, we get into the utilities. Desktop Server does have an extension or add-on for this, but it comes with Mailhog. And what this is going to do is allow you to catch all of those local emails that are sent, so you don't need to deal with having to patch through a whole SMT HTTP connection or some other server to test emails that are going out when you're local, you're going to be able to just grab them easily that way. So you got the quick links to view the site, to get into the admin area. You could stop the entire server. You could add new ones. Again, pretty good software here. It's becoming more and more popular, and it's going to basically do the same thing as desktop server. So from here, what I would suggest you do is, even if you've grabbed desktop server, go ahead and close it, and then go grab local too. And as you're building and playing around here, you could switch between the two. You can get a feel for which you prefer. And then either way, if something goes wrong, they make an update, it crashes, something doesn't work right, you could always have a backup there, and that's helpful as well. I have both of these downloaded, although I may prefer to use one versus the other. It's nice to have. So there you go, local from Flywheel. We now have covered how to set up WordPress and get it running locally.